Well, everybody just loves a good story, and I've got one more story to tell you today. And it was 25 years ago, plus maybe 30. I had a group of farmers that I used to work with. We had a mail-in record system, and it was a elaborate record-keeping system. It was an enterprise analysis, and what it allowed you to do, you had a beginning inventory, an ending inventory, what you produced, and then what was remaining was either missing or was fed through a cattle, or that was a loss. Well, one of my farmers, and he was very meticulous in his record keeping. One year we were sitting around his dinner table, and that's where that we always talked about the records and trying to correct them and all this kind of thing. And I looked at one of my producers, and I told him, I said, "Boy, your hay cost and your cattle went up a bunch this year." And he looked at me and he said, "Stacey, it must be an inventory." And I looked at him and I said, "Well, you know, you're pretty good at this. You go out and you count bales and you tell me how many bales and we estimate the weight of them." And we did that at the first of the year and at the end of the year. And he said, "Well, tell me what the numbers was." So I told him what the numbers was, and he said, "Well, that's right, that's right." And I said, "Well, you did the same thing last year." And he said, "Well, those numbers must be right." And I said, "Well, okay, here was the production that you said you had." He said, Yep. He said, "That's how much hay I wrapped up," and that kind of thing. Well, he said, "Well, where can it be, Stacey?" And I said, "I don't know, you must have fed it." And you know, when you're visiting with farmers and this kind of thing, in a little while they'll look at you and they'll say, you'll see the light bulb come on, and you go, "Oh," and you see their eyebrows usually lift, and they'll go, "Oh," and that's exactly what this guy did. He said, "Do you have my depreciation schedule?" And I said, "Well, yeah." He said, Tell me. He said, "When did I get my big round baler?" And I looked at it and I said, "Well, you got it this year, so you've got big round bales this year." Yeah. He said, "And you said we fed this much hay?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Man," he said, "that's half again or twice as much nearly as what we'd fed last year." And I said, "Yeah, it is." And he said, "Man," he said, "you know, I've been wondering about that." He said, "Because every time I go out there and I feed hay," and he said, "I lift those bales off the ground," and he says, "Part of it stays on the ground," and he says, "Part of it falls off," and he says, "And then the cows, they don't even eat all of it." And he said, "Man," he said, I didn't know that it was costing me that much out there." And I said, "Well," I said, "that's what it kind of looks like." And he said, "You know something?" He said, "This next year, you're going to see something else on my depreciation schedule." And I said, "Well, what's that?" And he said, "You're just going to see a new hay barn on there." But he says, "Because I can't afford to lose that much hay, Stacey." And I said, "Well, that just sounds like a good idea to me."